Hi, everyone. It's Brian Katoulis, host of Taking the Edge Off the Middle East, the podcast where we have a series of casual conversations offering up important insights on the events of the Middle East and why it matters to America these days. If you're a new listener, thanks for joining us. If you're a previous listener, thanks for coming back. What we need you to do is rate, review, and subscribe. Send us your feedback. What you say helps us make the program better. What we do at Taking the Edge Off the Middle East is to try to loosen things up a little bit, have more informal, relaxed conversations about sometimes very tough issues. This week, we have a very special guest, Emad Shargi, who's an Iranian-American businessman who was detained in Iran for more than 5 years. And with all the news on Iran and what the Islamic Republic of Iran's regime is doing to its people, we thought it would be important to hear Emad's perspective on not only what he endured in his ordeal, in torture and mock executions and his attempted escape, but also his perspectives on just the nature of this regime. He's a man who was born in Iran, but came to America in the early 1980s, loves this country, has very important insight. So we're lucky to have him out on the program today, and we hope you enjoy our conversation. It's my pleasure, Emad Shargi, to welcome you to the podcast, Taking the Edge Off the Middle East. Let's take some edge off the Middle East.
Yes, let's do it. Cheers.
Yes. This podcast, as you know, is a series of informal conversations. We try to be lighthearted, but that doesn't mean we avoid very tough issues. And we're going to talk about some tough issues with everything that's going on in the news right now on Iran. You were detained unlawfully and held hostage for essentially 5 years.
Correct.
I mean, it was two periods. One period where you were detained in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were under essentially house arrest because they took your passport. You tried to escape, and then they grabbed you back in. We're going to talk a bit about that.
Sure.
The central question I want you to keep in mind when we talk about this is, what is your experience? Tell us all about the nature of this regime, the one that's in power. But take us back to April of 2018. You're living in Tehran after a hiatus of, almost 40 years?
6, 7 years. Actually, I wasn't living in Iran at the time when I was arrested. I was living in Amsterdam with my wife.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I was working. Correct. I was working for a VC there. And we decided to go back to Tehran for the Nowruz holidays.
Okay.
So by January of 2018, we had moved completely out of Iran after like 7 months of being there.
Okay.
So we go back, and I arrive. I flew alone from Amsterdam to Tehran's Imam Khomeini Airport. No problem. Got in. My daughter came from University of St. Andrews for holidays.
Yeah.
My wife was there. My mother-in-law came from Palo Alto. My brother-in-law came from Palo Alto. The house was full.
Nice.
And we all celebrated Nowruz together, and there was no problem. My mom happened to be in Tehran at the time. And the reason I kept delaying my return to Amsterdam was she went under a procedure, and then she wouldn't come out of her anesthesia for a week.
Right.
So I stayed for a whole week, and I would go to the ICU every morning, sit there till they kicked me out at night. And on the 7th day, she came to, and we thought she had gone in a coma. But she came to. She recognized me. She recognized my wife. This was around 9:30 on the 23rd of April, 2018. So my wife and I were so happy. We got into a taxi. We went home, and I was due to leave in 2 days from there.
So on the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after midnight.
Yeah. We were exhausted. We go to bed around 10:30. 5 minutes later, my wife nudges me and says, "Emad, can you go to the guest bedroom? You're snoring." So I said, "Sure."
Yeah, I get that from time to time.
So I go into the guest bedroom, go to sleep.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, the door to my bedroom creaks open, and I see a flashlight, and I see movement back there, and I hear the familiar voice of the house, the caretaker of the house that had been in my house for 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
And he says, "Mr. Emad, you have some people who want to see you." At that moment, they turn on the light in the room, and I see, probably 7, 8 people standing behind one gentleman. He was the only one who was older. He comes in, he says, "Are you Emad Shargi?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Here's an arrest warrant for yourself and for your wife."
Did he say what the charge was?
No, no. I didn't find out what the charge was until the next day. Anyhow, they had about 15 people in the house, and there was probably another 5 to 10 outside. I mean, this was a large group of people.
And they were videotaping it, right?
They came in that room videotaping.
We're familiar with those tactics here in America these days.
Yes, well, unfortunately, they were videotaping from the moment they came into my bedroom until I went and woke up my wife in the master bedroom. And that was one of the toughest parts, waking up your wife and she looks up and there is 2, 3 guys behind me and there is a single female officer clad in black chador. And she was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Is my mother dead?" I was like, no, it's okay. Just wake up, come out. So that's how it started. And
how do you think you got on their radar screen? I mean, you were going back and forth, and we talked about this before, after the Iran nuclear deal was signed.
Yeah, I was at the time working for a private equity firm in Abu Dhabi. And all multinational corporations, especially European ones, and even some American ones, they were all traveling to Iran during that heyday of JCPOA.
Yeah, people thought this would be maybe a new era.
Correct. They thought that this thing will open up new doors, sanctions will be lifted. So they all wanted to position themselves for when the things were opened up.
And you were subscribing to that as well at the time.
Yeah, but we were not doing anything. All we were doing is going around, like, in all the verticals that my private equity was active.
Yeah.
We were looking in those verticals.
Right, but you thought maybe there's some hope here.
Of course.
Yeah.
Everybody did.
Right.
I mean, it was a crazy time. Everyone I knew in Abu Dhabi from Europe, from multinational corporations, all of a sudden, they were sent to Tehran to become their station chief or office manager of their company.
Yeah. So how did they pluck you? I mean, you weren't the only one. There were other businessmen, and also the timing of this, because your arrest came just 2 weeks before President Trump in his first term stepped out of the JCPOA.
Correct.
He was hinting that he was doing that. And you've described this, and if people have not watched your interviews on 60 Minutes and other places, because we want to talk about sort of what happened, but then how you see the regime. The timing and how did you in particular, you think they saw you at the airport or something? Or?
No, I think there was a combination of things that happened. A lot of it could have been the way I was hobnobbing with people like myself in Iran, people who were Western educated, who were factory owners, who had startups. They would invite me to their companies. They knew my family. Some of us had known each other from the past. We had met at Iran-EU forums in Geneva, in London. So once you go back, for these guys, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like another person who comes over.
Like me.
Yeah.
So I missed you.
Yeah, exactly. And I would always shave. I would always put on a tie, and I would dress pretty much like I am dressed now.
Yeah. You're making me feel insecure, by the way.
And in Iran, it's not a very smart thing to do.
You should have had a beard.
You should have a beard. You should not shower for a few days, all of those things. But I always tell people, every day, hundreds of dual nationals from this country go to Iran.
Right.
Not all of them are arrested. Some will. It just depends on your luck.
And that's your message. You've consistently, since you've been out, Don't go while this regime is still in power, right?
Don't go, especially now. Don't go.
So they took you to Evin Prison, and this is the Revolutionary Guard.
That's correct.
You became 97010. Tell us what that is.
That's right. Well, before I tell you what 97010 is they took me to the prosecutor's office that morning, who read my charges to me. And my charges were assembly and collusion to overthrow the Islamic Republic and espionage.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, how the hell did they come up with those two?
Right.
I mean, they could have, I had alcohol in the house. They could have said, the guy is drinking, whatever. But espionage and assembly and collusion, who the hell did I assemble with and who did I collude with? Mm-hmm. And when I knew that the arrest warrant had my wife's name on it, somebody who's, a poet.
Right.
Non-political. I knew the whole thing was a sham.
Uh-huh.
So the prosecutor told me, you've had many foreigners in your home. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, but since when hospitality in Iran has become a crime?
Nice.
And he burst out laughing. He says, you'll soon find out.
Oh.
They blindfolded me. They put me back in the same car that they had brought me there. And we drove about 2-3 minutes. And they took me to another section of Evin that later on I found out it's called Section 2A. Mm-hmm. It belongs to the IRGC's intelligence agency. And you go in there and, they take your clothes off, they photograph you, they fingerprint you, they ask you questions, your phone number, your address. It's like, why are you asking all this stuff? You know where I live. You came and got me. Mm-hmm. And then they give you like these Viet Cong pajamas in blue. And then they blindfold you again, and then they walk you to the main door, and they ring the bell, and the familiar sound of, say it, you have another guest. Mm-hmm. And then you go in, some guy grabs you by the elbow, they take you and they throw you into a solitary cell.
And you've spent months in solitary.
Yeah, I mean, altogether in combined time, I spent 6 months in solitary.
And you said that's the closest to death that you feel because you're not with anyone. And what do you do in that period if you have nothing to read, nothing?
I mean, half the wall was like marble tiles. So I would look at the veins looking for patterns. Uh-huh. I would think about my childhood. I would think about my life. Yeah. I would think, how fortunate I have been this far in life. So up to this point, everything was okay. I'd already been in solitary for, 5 hours, 6 hours. And there's a telephone in there. There's a telephone in all the cells. It's an internal phone. Uh-huh. They ring you up and they say your code, 97010, get ready for interrogation. Uh-huh. So moments later, somebody opens the door. Outside, there's a hook where your blindfold's on. They take the blindfold, they give it to you, you put it on, and then they hold you by the elbow. You go down a couple of holes, and while you're walking, you can see cells as you're going. They walk you to an outside space, which is, later on I found out, is where we would eventually walk in the mornings and the afternoons. 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon. Right. They called it habahori, which means to take in air. And then they take you to down a few steps, stairs, and to a red door. They knock on the door. They have the key. They open up, and you enter another courtyard and another building. And that's the interrogation building. Mm-hmm. They open the door, and they say it, and then your interrogators come out. They sign for you, and then they take you in.
Mhm.
On that first night, that was probably one of the hardest nights because you really don't know what's going on.
Right.
You haven't slept the night before.
Mhm.
They've completely knocked you out of your stride. You don't know what's going on. And then, you're like a little mouse that has been caught by cat, blindfolded. They throw you around, they hit you, they kick you, they slap you.
It's a group of people.
It's a group of people.
And do they do the good cop, bad cop thing?
They do that.
And they were essentially trying to get you to admit falsely that you were some CIA agent or something. That's their main thing.
Exactly. I mean, the first thing they did to me when they took me to that second courtyard, they made me stand about 6-7 inches from the wall. And I must have stood there half an hour, and soon you start, weaving because you're scared. It's a bit chilly out. You're hardly wearing anything, and you don't know what's coming.
Right, yeah.
So somebody whispers in my ear, and they say, "Do you want a pill that you put under your tongue?" And I was like, "No, it's okay. I'm fine. Thank you." And all of this time, you're blindfolded. They pull your blindfolds down. You can't see anything. It's total darkness. Then they yank you in, and then they go through, bring the car battery, let's shock his testicles. They put a tourniquet around your arm, looking for your vein. They put a cold metal on your hand.
And they're just sort of, their demeanor's stern, or they're having fun. Like what they do this probably several times a day to many different people. And
the closest thing I can think about is Clockwork Orange. Just crazy stuff.
Right. And you mentioned it was the physical abuse, but also the psychological and emotional, that you were hearing cries of women and even children.
Yeah, but not that night.
Yeah.
This happened later.
Yeah.
That night, they were putting maximum pressure on me. They took me to, after, all the beatings and everything, they took me to a room, and they basically went through a mock execution by hanging.
That first night.
And they did it another couple of times, but I figured on the first night, if you're not doing it on the first night, you're probably not going to do it on the second night. And they recited the last prayer, and somebody came from the back. I had not seen any of these guys. These guys were all behind me. I was always blindfolded.
Right.
But when they lifted my blindfold, I could see the mullah sitting in front of me, bathed in green light. He had a Quran in his hand, and he started reciting Fatiha. And then somebody pulled the blindfold from the back over my eyes, and he said, "Do you know what he's reciting?" I said, "No, And he says, "This is your last right. You will be hung, and the only way you can stop that is that if you confess that you are an agent of the CIA." They handed me a piece of paper and a pen. The paper I became very familiar with. Everything you write down on official Sepah paper, the IRGC intelligence agency's paper. So what they do is they write the first line, the question, then underneath it, you write whatever that they've asked you.
Yeah.
So on this first night, the question was, and my name in my U.S. passport is Edward Emad Shargi. They always loved writing Edward, because that showed that I was the great Satan.
Oh yes, yeah.
Edward, admit that you are an agent of CIA.
Yeah.
So I said, "Give me the pen," and those were the first words I had written in Farsi in 36 years.
And you're writing them like a elementary school.
Literally, yes. I wrote, "I am not a spy," period.
Wow.
Handed it back to him. Looked at it, ripped it up, smacked me across the face. And it went on for another half an hour, and then they took me back to my cell.
Yeah.
So this was the first night of that 8 first months at 2A.
And it was just sort of a regular schedule. And to the point I asked you earlier before, you would hear other people tortured. And I heard this in other interviews, women and children. And in fact, you didn't know your wife, her name's
Bahare.
Yeah. You didn't know whether she was actually detained. She was not.
She was not. I mean, but
you didn't know.
No, for the first 8 weeks, I didn't know, because when they took me out of the house, I didn't have any communication with the outside world. But I knew that first night they had shown me the arrest warrant. It was for me and for my wife. So it wasn't, out of the ordinary for me to think that she might be there.
Right. Yeah.
But, at nights, I mean, some of the hardest part of being in 2A wasn't what was happening to you. It was what you heard through those walls. Mm-hmm. You would hear, people being dragged off at all hours for interrogations. You would hear people banging their heads against the door, screams. Upstairs was Section 2A's women quarters. And, crying hysterically when you have lost all emotional control.
Right.
That screaming.
Yeah, that's a terror in and of itself.
Exactly. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. And on one occasion, I remember for 3 or 4 days, I could hear a child upstairs that they had put in the cell with the mother.
Uh-huh.
And, these two would cry at nights.
So thanks for sharing that. I know it's hard, and I can't imagine going through this. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but I want to ask you this question because it relates to what we're seeing in the news right now. And we, I think tanks sort of do the policy analysis. What does it say to you, having suffered this abuse? And this was just the first round, right?
That's right.
Months, and we don't have enough time to get into the full detail of your story. I hope someday you write a book, and it'll be a great book of endurance and resilience. What does it tell you about this regime, the very regime right now that is brutalizing its people again? We don't know how many people have been killed in the streets, and there's reports of executions despite Trump's red line, all of this. What does it tell you as someone who was born in Iran, went back after 30 plus years, reconnected? How did this experience shape your view and change your view about the regime?
This regime is not Persian. This regime is an invasive species that came to Iran during the 16th and 17th century under the Safavid regime, when they installed the 12er Shiism in Iran. Most of this ilk can look at their heritage to southern Lebanon, Jebel Amal, I think it's called. I don't think since the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia has there ever been a government that despises its own population as much as the Islamic regime does.
Yeah.
Since the inception of the 1979 revolution, this regime has done everything to demean, belittle Persian culture, Persian language, Persian symbols, Persian celebrations, Persian language. Every time their back is against the wall and they get attacked by somebody, they reach for those nationalistic Persian symbols.
So, but basically you're saying this regime feels like a foreign occupation to a lot of ordinary Persian people. This is alien to them.
Yes.
And it's been in power since 1979 through brute force. It has this ideology. But you were saying to me before in previous conversations, it also has an economic motive for what it was doing. And you experienced that as well when you were in prison, right?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at, one of the things that you are privy to when you're at 2A is that you get to see all the incoming detainees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the IRGC's intelligence agency was set up as a counterintelligence agency. What I saw, and I served 8 months in 2A, where basically this is a racketeering organization. They bring people in, they fleece them. Their next objective is hostage taking, and their next objective is to go after regimes' opponents and torture them.
Right.
At the time of my arrest, the head of this organization, this intelligence so-called agency, was Hossein Taib, a uneducated thug whose benefactor is Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of Ali Khamenei and the heir apparent.
Possible next leader, if things don't change.
Correct.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. One last thing on your ordeal, maybe one or two more things. So you got out on bail in the end of 2018, right?
Yeah, December.
And then you were acquitted, but they didn't give you your travel documents back. So essentially you're under form of house arrest, or you can't.
I was under a travel ban. I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, but you had to go to the prosecutor's office.
For all of 2019.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
And then you got wind in 2020, because you couldn't leave, that maybe, you tell me the story, but your buddy Rudy, one of your best friends, and that's a different Rudy than our friend Rudy De Leon, who introduced us, your childhood friend. Tell us a little bit about that. I want to have the listeners hear about that story.
So I was acquitted at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
I was told that I would get my passport and I could leave in 2 weeks.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. They sent my file to the Revolutionary Court in Tehran, to section branch 15, where Judge Salavati sits.
Hanging judge. He ordered journalists, many prominent people,
absolutely,
to death. Yeah.
He's given out about 1,600 years in prison sentences since early 2000, and some 100 death sentences. But my lawyer kept telling me, don't worry about it. They're just saving face. It's nothing. So it took the whole of 2020, me sitting around waiting. I went to his office, to Salavati's office, not court, his office, I think twice for 10 minutes. Once was to read my new indictment. And I was like, what the hell is this? 5.5 pages of just lies. And I told him, I said, sir, your own prosecutor has dropped charges, the charges that they had arrested me on. He has dropped charges on both counts. He said, don't worry about it. Throw that away. So this was beginning of 2020. I think the Biden administration was sort of...
Beginning 2020 would have been around Qasem
Soleimani.
Yeah. So this was maximum pressure.
That's right.
Trump 1.0.
That's right.
And you've always talked about how you were a pawn in a lot of these things.
Yeah. So I ended up being that way. All charges were dropped, but I ended up getting 10 years for cooperating with the hostile nation of America.
But you weren't yet arrested?
No, I had 20 days to appeal. By this point, I had been through this now for 2 years and 8 months. I knew that I lived in a lawless country with a corrupt judiciary. There was no chance that the 10 years would be overturned. In fact, I remember Salavati telling me, if you accept my verdict, I'll knock 2.5 years off now.
Wow.
And I said, no, thanks.
Did he try to bribe you too, or no?
No, he just told me I'll knock 2.5 years if you accept my verdict. And I said, sir, if I accept your verdict, it means that I accept your judgment.
Right.
Give me the 10 years, So
you tried to get out of the country.
I tried to get out of the country. One morning, my best friend Rudy, that we had known each other, we have now 55 years. He calls me up from his home office in Europe. And says to me, hey, so-and-so, lots of bad words. He says, get off your ass. I want you to do something for me today.
Like all old friends talk to each other, yeah.
And I had a gut feeling, what he had in mind. That Rudy and I had businesses together. We had a business in Russia for 6 years. He was my partner in
So
that.
you sort of knew.
I knew
there's
already.
Telepathy between people,
Exactly.
right? I believe in it. So, yeah.
So he told me, look, there's this guy, a friend of mine from Erbil. His family is in Tehran. He's run out of money. Give him a call, go give him like $500, I was like, give me a break. I just got 10 years. I'm dying. You want me to be an errand boy for you. He was like, look, get off your ass. Go do it.
Right.
So I called this guy. I arranged to meet him at 1:00. I was given a name, a phone number. I call this guy, 1:00, I go see him at our rendezvous. Young guy in his early 30s, leather jacket, green pants, white shirt. And he says to me, are you ready? And I was like, are you ready for what? He says, I'm here to take you over. I was like, over where? He says, your friends have sent me to take you across the border.
Oh.
I was like, okay, great. Well, hopefully like in a day or two we can go. He was like,
You got to go now.
we got to go now,
right
now. I had just bought a latte at a shop. It was still full. And that was my, at that point I had to make a decision.
Right.
I had left my cell phone at home on purpose.
Uh-huh.
So nobody knew where I was anymore.
Yeah.
I threw the coffee away. I got into a taxi that he hailed, and his pseudonym was Jafari. And we drove south to Ferdowsi Square. We got off again at that point. He got another taxi. He took us to the Western bus terminal near Azadi Square.
Uh-huh.
We snaked ourselves around buses, both intercity and also city buses, because the terminal is used by both.
Yeah.
And, he was looking around, and around 2:30, we got into a bus. He had already bought us tickets with other people's national ID numbers. So we sit in the bus, and I was like, where are we going? He said, we're going to Bukhan. I was like, where is Bukhan? Bukhan is a 10-hour bus ride northwest of Tehran in western Azerbaijan region.
Uh-huh. This is like the border of Azerbaijan or Iraq, or where? There.
It's getting there.
Uh-huh.
So from Bukhan to the border is like a 3.5-4 hour car ride.
Right.
So we were going that direction. We get in the bus. He says to me, sit behind me. Don't talk to anybody. If anybody asks you why you're going there, just tell them you're going there to buy tires for your business.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine. And then his phone rings after a while. He talks on it, and then he gives it to me. So this was the person who was in charge of this whole operation. He spoke Farsi. He said, Mr. Abbott, are you okay? I said, yes. He said, look, the guy who is bringing you across the border knows nothing about you. Don't tell him anything. Don't discuss anything with him.
Yeah.
Right?
So they know what they're doing. This is a system they've had in place for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we get to Bukhan at midnight. Halfway through, actually, the bus stops for rest. Some passengers go. Now, I'm sitting, and the seat next to me, where a lady used to sit, she leaves, and an IRGC guy's soldier comes and sits next to me. But we didn't say a word. He was listening to his head.
Because you weren't chit-chatting with him.
No. But it was like, out of all the people in the world, how come this guy comes to sit next to me?
Right.
We get to Bukhan. There is a getaway car waiting for us. We get in. It takes us to the outside of the city to another waiting car. We get into that. And we drive for 2.5 hours through mountainous roads. It was just the driver, Jafari, and me. And Jafari and the driver, I think that they were competing for the smoking Olympics. So
happens a lot.
One of them would light up, open the window, and it was cold as hell.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the back, so I would get blasted by cold air and smoke. He would flick his cigarette out, roll his window up, The driver would
I'll do the same.
same thing.
You got almost to the border.
We got to the border. We went to the city of Mehabad. There was a safe house there. We stayed for 2 hours in it. It was actually a barber shop with a apartment attached to the back. We were there for 2.5 hours. Another car came, picked us up. And Jafari told me there is one more IRGC checkpoint before the border. If we clear it, we are done. So we soon pull up, after about 30 minutes, we pull up to a dam. And right on the other side of the crest of the dam, I could just make out a checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So we drive there, we get to it, not a human being in sight. The fire pit was out.
And you thought, we're all free.
I was like, shit, why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah.
You know, I'm done. I'm going to be home soon. We had one more exchange of cars. We get to it. It's a white beat-up Toyota 4x4 driven by a older gentleman in Kurdish outfit. I get in. Jafari gets in the front. And that car ride lasted about a minute. I was tying my shoelaces. I look up, and I thought it was an accident. But when I looked again, there were 2 SUVs blocking the road, and there was a squadron of guys behind it in field khaki. They had a lot of them Palestinian kafirs wrapped around their faces, so you couldn't tell who they were. But they all had an AK-47 in their hands, pointing at the car, and they didn't come up to us and say, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing?" They just ran to the car, opened the doors, threw us on the floor, handcuffed us. They put my scarf around my eyes, and basically what had happened, Brian, was exactly a week prior to that morning.
This is in December of 2020. Right?
That's right.
Okay.
A week before that, the Israelis had successfully assassinated Fakhrizadeh, who was the father of the Iranian nuclear.
Right. So these guys on the border region are on high alert.
Exactly.
And then, so this roller coaster ride that you've been through, and you're back, if I remember, you're in Urmia,
Yes.
Ministry of Intelligence prison. They're giving you a coffin. They put you in a coffin-like cell.
Yep.
And they give you hallucinogen drugs. They force you to take drugs.
Yeah, every night.
Yeah. But essentially, you get back to Tehran because you're in their snatches. You were falsely charged again and all of that. And the same sort of torture, psychological abuse, you're back under that in 2021.
That's correct.
2022. Let me ask you this, because I talked to some of your family members and other people who know you well. You had phone calls.
Yes.
From the prison. You got to talk to your parents and your family and things like this. And this is what I heard. Despite how horrific you were being treated, you would be like telling your father, I had a nice walk today, and I went to the library. And he would joke with you.
That's right.
That he'd want a room next to you but you were just trying to put a good face on this. Yeah.
Those conversations that you're referring to took place when I was sent to the general ward of Evin Prison.
When you're in the IRGC 2A, you don't
know
that. Yeah.
When you're in IRGC 2A, your interrogators are in charge of what they give you. So you could have a 2-minute phone call every month. You could have no phone calls. Maximum phone calls 15 minutes a day. But when you're in the general ward, you have a phone card. They turn the phones on at 8 in the morning, and then they turn them off at 9 o'clock at night. So you can call. And basically your phone card has 7 phone numbers that has been pre-approved by your arresting body. So in my case, the IRGC had approved those numbers. So it's not like you can just call anybody.
Okay, but you were calling your family. And I heard from your daughter, Ariana, as well, that you have this thing with your wife, that you always send flowers on the day you met her birthday and your anniversary.
That's correct.
And my wife, Kristen, hears this. She's going to be like, what's up? What's going on? But you did this from prison too.
That's right.
And that's beautiful that you took the time, the precious time that you had to stay connected. And I'm sure that was part of how we're going to talk a bit about how you stayed, how you endured this, the resilience that you face in things like this. But I have to move forward a little bit on the policy and your release and how that took place. And I know some of it you don't know because you're in prison at the time and you know it ex post facto.
That's correct.
2020. And then want to talk a little bit about the future, reserve some time about the present moment in Iran. When you look back on sort of that period and what you've learned and pieced together about how your captors were essentially using you in a pawn of U.S. Policy debates and everything that was going on first under Trump and then under the Biden administration, do you think that there are things that points of leverage, things that could have been done differently to get you home sooner when you talk to your family and others who were engaged in trying to get you out? When you look back on that period, were there missed opportunities to get you and the others that were detained out?
Well, let me tell you what happened in April of 2021. They took me out of a communal room. They changed my interrogators. A new team took over. And the attitude changed. I was like, what's going on? And the team leader told me there's talk of prisoner exchange. So they changed my room. They gave me a nicer, like what they call a suite, which is basically a prison cell with a little yard attached to it. You have, control to go out in the yard from sunrise to sunset.
Yeah.
And then they lock you in. They allowed me to buy food from outside. Right? They did a number of days of videoing me. They took me to a studio. So I knew something was happening.
Could you get visitors at all during this whole period? No, never.
No. My, their attitude changed. And by July, the same guy told me, he said, Emad, I think the deal is off.
July 2021.
Correct.
So this would have been a few months into the Biden team's negotiations in Vienna.
That's right.
And that was, and political winds had shifted inside of Iran as well. It was more of a hardline view.
But I think they had reached a deal on the prisoner exchange. The same deal that got us out in 2023 was on the table in summer of 2021. The Iranians had accepted it.
And that essentially was $6 billion of frozen assets.
Correct.
Plus 5 or 6.
It was, at the time, 3 of us.
No, but over here, there were also people released from the U.S.
Correct. There was like five Iranians here that had been arrested.
Yeah.
Which eventually, I think only 2 of them went back. The other 3 didn't want to go back to Iran.
So what you're saying in 21, your understanding is they could have had a separate deal from the bigger, broader nuclear.
They had a deal.
They had it.
They had a deal, and I remember reading Mr. Arakchi.
Oh yeah, he was the foreign minister
in the paper. He wasn't the foreign minister at the time,
but now he is.
Now he is
published today in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, I wish that the Western media wouldn't give these guys the space to write.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but I think myself and my fellow Americans could have been home 2 years earlier. I mean, I remember my sister telling me that she went to see Senator Menendez.
Yes.
And
who's in jail now?
Who's in jail now. And Menendez had said to her, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get the Senate to go along with the administration.
Because he was a hardline Democrat on this issue, right? And he didn't.
That's right. Yeah. Basically, it was like, we're not going to play footsie with hostage takers. While at the same time, now I understand it was perfectly okay for him to play footsie with the Egyptians and take money from contractors in New York who were lobbying on behalf of the Egyptian government.
Yeah, he's in jail now.
I understand.
Convicted on corruption charges and things.
But anyhow, we could have been home 2 years earlier.
Right.
And I think it was a mistake from the beginning to tie us to the renewal of the JCPOA.
Right.
Right? We had nothing to do with it. I think the Biden administration wanted to get a all-inclusive deal done in one go.
Well, you're a businessman. I mean, it doesn't seem to be good negotiating tactics on the Biden administration's part, because if you understand, your perspective is the regime is using you as a pawn and they're trying to trade you. And look, the position's hardened in this the Iran regime when after Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, right? They had a certain view and the hardliners were dominant. But your view was that 2 years sooner you could have been out.
Because basically that humanitarian deal that was on the table in the summer of 2021 was the same deal that got us out in September of 2023.
Right.
Nothing changed.
Yeah.
That money flow was from South Korea through various intermediaries to Qatar.
Yeah.
And that money still sits in restricted accounts in Doha. As far as I know, not a single cent has been given to the Iranians, because soon after our release, the horrendous events of October 7th happened.
Right. Yeah. No, that's my understanding is that was not fulfilled. It's baffling to me, though, to hear your story and understand that your family didn't have initially much access to the president and others. I don't know if that is accurate.
That's accurate.
Your sister actually had to corner President Biden at a Persian-American event, right?
At the White House, yes.
At the White House. Yeah, and I know others in our circles and things like that were trying to make sure this was on the agenda. But your perception was they wanted the bigger deal as opposed to trying to pragmatically get Americans home. They were...
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, people like me, no matter where we are, in Iran, in Russia, in China, when the State Department designates us as wrongfully detained, they know that we are innocent, that we hadn't done anything, that we have been taken as a political pawn.
Right.
So you always have to get your people back home as soon as possible because, time is not on your side.
Right. And once you wrap it up in bigger issues, it becomes much more complicated. Let's flash forward. I could talk to you forever about what you endured. I want to talk about the present moment because it's an important moment for the people of Iran. How do you see, here we are in the start of the 2026, there was some hope, I think, in some change coming, and President Trump issued a red line, and we may be in an interregnum period here. We're recording on January 21st. This comes out in a week or so, this episode. How do you see, is this qualitatively different in terms of what the people of Iran are trying to do and what the regime is doing now?
I think 47 years has gone by. In 1979, somebody asked the supreme leader at the time, Ayatollah Khomeini, what his thoughts were about economy.
Mm-hmm.
And he replied that economy is for donkeys. Now, I'll go out on a limb here and say if the Iranians had chosen a few donkeys back in 1979, their economic situation would be far, far better than it is today.
Yeah. Can I hit a pause button on the economy? I'm gonna quiz you here. Let's see.
Sure.
We guess. What's today's the GDP of Iran? About 95 million people. What ballpark?
470 billion.
Yeah, that's what it is around there. 370. 50 years ago. What was it? 1975 when you were still a young man. Or
I think it would have been about 110.
It's close. It's 52 billion. So 52 billion 50 years ago.
Tax adjust. I mean, inflation adjusted.
There you go. You're a businessman. You know numbers better than I do. But I often think about this and talk about this in Egypt when I lived and worked. a good point of comparison is South Korea. 1975, they had an economy of 20 billion. They had a military dictatorship, was very closed off. Today, $2 trillion economy, a major economic force. I raise that in that if there's change, if there's freedom, if this regime is gone, do you see that potential?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you look back in 1975, Iran was far ahead of where South Korea was at the time.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Look where South Korea is today, and look where Iran is today. Look where North Korea is today. When you have regimes that their only function is survival, they don't care about the population.
Mm-hmm.
All they care about is the cronies around them, how much they're stealing, who's taking money out. This is what's been happening in Iran. I mean, you look at the international airport in Tehran, and then you look at Dubai airport.
Yeah.
Now, I remember Dubai airport from the late 80s.
Right.
It was literally 2 rooms.
Uh-huh.
And now look at it. And I remember Mehrabad airport in the early 70s in Iran. Nice airport, direct flights to New York.
Yeah.
And look at what we have now, what they have in Emirates.
Right.
2 airports in Dubai, 1 in Abu Dhabi. Huge. These 2 airlines control 70% of the flights through the Middle East.
Right. So this regime, I mean, again, your life experience, your ordeal, it's a theocratic, kleptocratic, misogynistic. It's not a friend of America, the regime, but the people could be. The people are protesting and have been, but the iron fist has been brought down again.
Yes.
Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands killed, many more detained. We don't know the numbers
and
really.
Let's put it in perspective. We will forget about the top numbers of 15,000.
Right.
In 3 days, the kill rate was 2,000 a day.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Let's put that in perspective. Since October 7, about 835 days has gone by. Here was Israel that was attacked by a foreign adversary. If the Israelis use the same kill rate that the Islamic Republic has used on its own civilians, the death toll in Gaza would be over 1.6 million people.
Wow.
So this is what this regime does to its own people.
Yet you don't have the debate here in America that you did, and I understand why a bit, as the U.S. taxpayer money goes to Israel, and we're not backing the regime in Iran, but it doesn't feel like, and as somebody who I worked at the Center for American Progress, I come from the center left, it pains me to say that the plight of the Iranian people, the human rights situation, hasn't really been a strong feature. No. I don't know if you agree with that.
I agree with that.
In the Obama and then in the Biden administration.
Absolutely.
I mean, after Mahsa Amini was murdered, and we didn't have time to talk about what you endured, the fire at Evin Prison that almost killed you, there was not, from my view, a rethink of U.S. policy after Mahsa Amini's death, but more importantly, equally important, the people rising up, and women especially. And there wasn't really any new policy tools introduced.
Yeah, I really don't understand. Where is the moral outrage on campuses?
Yeah.
Right? There are innocent people getting killed. Before that, it was a women's movement, for God's sakes. Where in the world have we ever seen that before?
Yeah.
Where were people here supporting that?
Yeah. I think it's gotten caught up, and I'm not justifying it. I'm baffled as you are in this notion. So when people were advocating for the Iran nuclear deal, they would often say, and President Obama and others around him would say, it's either this deal with the regime or another war in the Middle East like the Iraq War in 2003. And there's this knee-jerk reaction, and it doesn't come solely from the left. There are parts of the right, I think some including in Donald Trump's administration, Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, others. Maybe their views have changed, like a lot of the figures in the Trump administration. But it's this knee-jerk reaction to a case that actually, Iraq, 2003, is a much different storyline than what we're seeing here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, First of all, what war are we talking about? The Israelis in 12 days annihilated the Islamic Republic.
Yeah.
If the U.S. had allowed the Israelis to finish the job, probably this regime wouldn't be there today.
Uh-huh.
All right? This is a paper tiger. We have sowed this narrative in America since 1979 about the strength of the Islamic Republic. They are not strong.
Yeah.
Compared to the U.S. military, 48 hours, this regime will be gone.
Right. So we're recording this at a moment of uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
in the world, Greenland, Venezuela,
That's right.
Middle East, all of that, but uncertainty about Iran. It's reported today, again, it's January 21st, we're recording this. President Trump has ordered for decisive options from the military. What's your view on military action, and what are some other things U.S. policy makers and U.S. policy could do to help the Iranian people?
Well, let's start with what's happening right now. We have F-15s, F-35s. The USS Abraham Lincoln has just passed through the Strait of Malaga. America doesn't move this much heavy metal to a region just for the hell of it.
So you think another round's coming?
I think another round is coming. And so policy-wise, what I would suggest is some sort of a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by America. Every ship coming in, every ship going out, regardless of maritime flag, if it's carrying Iranian crude or Iranian product, needs to be seized.
Including to China?
Including to China, yes. You have to starve the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would urge the U.S. Treasury Department to look at the outflow of funds, gold, digital money to Oman, to UAE, European capitals, and to Turkey.
So some of these partners are, in a sense, benefiting their banking systems.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Of course they are. Also, a stern message needs to go out to banks in Europe, in the Caribbean safe havens, Liechtenstein, those areas.
Mm-hmm.
You guys go and set up SPVs and handle blood money from Iran. If we find out, we'll go after you.
Mm-hmm.
So that message has to be sent out.
So starve the regime.
Starve the regime.
How do you help the people?
Demolition and garbage removal. Get rid of Khamenei and Mujtaba Khamenei. Get rid of Ghalibaf. Get rid of Ejei, the head of the judiciary. Ali Salehi, the prosecutor of Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
Hit symbols that the population can see there is a hope for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
The Revolutionary Court, the building. Don't hit it at noon, like the Israelis hit Evin Prison.
Yeah.
Hit it at night, 3 a.m. Get rid of it. I would hit Majlis. I would hit IRGC and Basij barracks, their headquarters. The people need to see that this regime is on its way out.
Yeah.
And it will be on its way out.
And that's a pretty hard line.
Yeah.
But you think it won't actually be an extended war because it's a paper tiger. It's sort of like the Assad regime in its final days before it collapsed.
Exactly.
And also do things like the broadcasting that you witnessed in the TV.
Yeah, I would get rid of the IRI, the Iranian broadcasting service.
Yeah. Do you think Trump has any tools in play to help the protesters and people in the streets besides getting rid of the people who are killing them and imprisoning them? Are there things that we could do, or is it better for us to not get involved in offering support to different protesters and groups? I don't think he's even suited to do this. By my view.
I don't think he's even come out and said that. All he has said to the Iranian regime is stop killing your people.
Right.
And he said it on New Year's time. and I take him at his word.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, history will tell.
Yeah, because the history also is littered of U.S. presidents making their red lines. Like
Yes, I remember.
Syria and things like this. And look, you'll probably disagree with this. When I see Trump offering support to the protesters in Iran, but at the same time in our own country, in Minnesota, when he calls people who are protesting in the streets domestic terrorists and he's prosecuting officials, again, and aside from Catulus, not MEI policy and things like this, it seems a bit incongruous to me.
I can only be optimistic that it will at least help the Iranians, the Iranian people.
I hope so, because they've suffered a lot over decades. And I wish we had more time. I want to get to the final section of what I like to ask all of my guests. And when I hit the rewind button on your life, we talked in great detail about your ordeal, and thanks for sharing that.
I love it.
It's not easy to do. We connected it to the current regime and the one that imprisoned you and is now brutalizing its people again, and help people understand what's going on there. You endured a lot. And I'm impressed just getting to know you. You represent this classic American dream, immigrant American dream, before sort of recent events where you came here. Tell us, how did you choose the vocation in life? Entrepreneur, successful businessman that you are. Why are you a proud American as well? Those sorts of things. How did you choose this path? How did Emad become who Emad is?
Like most things in life, a lot of luck.
Happenstances.
Happenstances. Was I very smart? No. I worked hard. I ended up picking up the right fork along the way of life.
Family left after the revolution, went to London.
Yeah, my family actually left about a month after the revolution. And they went to London. They were there. I was already at boarding school in England.
That's right. And your sister, Netta, she told me this story where she had very long hair.
That's right.
And you took her to Vidal Sassoon.
I took her to Vidal Sassoon on Sloane Street.
What kind of haircut did you get? A number?
I got her cut right down to her shoulder.
Lady Di.
That's right.
She was like Princess Diana, like a hat head.
Yeah, she had her hair down all the way down to her waist.
So you made it there, and then you came to America.
That's right. I went to University of Maryland. Did economics bachelor's. I drove the shuttle buses around campus, which was really fun.
Yeah,
I got to meet a lot of people, and I went to GW and did my master's there. Then I went and worked with one of my wife's brothers in California, who had an exporting company, exporting products to some Middle Eastern countries, but mostly to South America, to Mexico.
Yeah.
And after 2 years, I came back to the Washington, D.C. area and started up my own shop.
Yeah. And is this something you're following in like your father's footsteps? How did you choose this vocation? Or it was just...
It was, for me, it was the best of all worlds, because I had from one side clients overseas, and the other side I had major U.S. chemical companies here. And I was in the middle. I was the middleman. The customers would place orders. They would open letters of credit for me.
Yeah.
I had 60-day open account with my suppliers. And I gave my customers, service. They would call me up sometimes at 3 a.m. saying, "Mr. Emad, our shipment is stuck at port. There was something wrong with the certificate of origin." I would say, "Hang on, hang up. I'll send it to you in 10 minutes. I would go down to my home office, type it up, stamp it, fax it. They would get their 500 tons of shipment cleared that hour.
Hard work, customer service, adding value, producing something that people want. The other thing you did, and you had talked about this before, is you absorbed and started to love the culture when you were in Britain and here in America. You saw The Boss, Bruce Springsteen, in 1985.
Boss in 1985 at the Cap Center, I think it was. It was
Born in the USA tour.
Born in the USA tour. God bless him, man. I saw him last year as well, and he looks great.
Yeah, he does.
He's great.
I don't know what he's drinking.
I don't know what he's doing, but he had a 2.5-hour set.
Yeah.
Didn't take a swig of water.
Uh-huh.
He sang all the way through. So it was those guys, when I was in England, Beatles were before me, but, I fell in love with them.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones, and then Supertramp and Pink Floyd.
That's good stuff. Yeah, that's awesome. So, it was back to, again, immigrant. We're in a different period where some of our leaders just villainize the folks. And I'm just so glad you made it here. And we get to know. And then you're a bridge to Iran, and hopefully a new Iran.
I hope so.
Who were the most influential people in your life? What shaped your core values?
Probably I would say my father. He was always steadfast, solid as a rock. Throughout the revolution, he made sure our standard of living didn't change. Didn't get too excited about things. He was always, a calm person.
Yeah.
And then I had people at my boarding school, my old housemaster, again, the same thing. I had a wonderful professor at George Washington University who was the head of my department. He's no longer with us, Professor Joseph Zeidner. Mm-hmm. I didn't make many friends during my master's program, but I made one friend, and that was the head of my department. Mm-hmm. And for many years afterwards, my wife and I would see him and his wife. We would get together. We would talk politics. We would smoke cigars.
Yeah.
So it was.
It's the relationships that matter.
Yeah.
And how you relate to other people. So it's not only. Oftentimes, when I ask this question, what advice would you give to the next generation? And I know one of your daughters, at least, and how she speaks of you. I mean, she said, quote, "I was pissed off that they detained him because you missed crucial, not at you, mm-hmm. at the regime. You miss key parts of her life. This is 5 years of your life when she's growing up and things like this." But she said when you were in the essentially under travel ban, you'd get up in the morning and you'd send a video message to her first thing in the morning that with the time zone difference, she would get at night before she went to sleep.
Exactly.
And I think that's what I've detected is part of your core value, where it kept you going in the resilience and endurance that you had. Was the connectivity to your family in this
absolutely. And one other thing that they would do for me, Ariana would do for me, is I would call her and she would say, "What song would you like to hear tonight?" Uh-huh. And I would say, "Play, Ian Dury's Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick," whatever. All right, and she would play that for me. But both my girls, I think they were fantastic advocates while I was.
Oh, they were on TV.
They were on TV.
Yeah.
My wife, my sister, of course, and my sister's husband, who was always behind the scene, but he was sort of the captain of the ship.
And running things,
running things and making sure everybody knew what to do.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, Emad, but thanks for sharing your story in the face of this dehumanization and this horrific regime that the people of Iran are suffering from again and deserve better. Your optimism, and I think you told me at one point or sent me something that said that this is one of the best tools of defiance, form of defiance, is being optimistic. And I hope we can share this view that, and I know we do, that the optimism of a better day inside Iran.
I really hope so. I really do. There is no other country in the Middle East that its population on the street is as close as the Iranians are to the American street.
Yes.
And to the Israeli street. Forget what the government says or the whack jobs in the Majlis say. The Iranian people, from what I have seen firsthand, both before the revolution, during my time at Evin, the Iranian people have nothing against the American people. And they, in fact, are culturally much closer to American people than some of the other regional countries.
Yeah. Well, let's hope for a better day for them.
I hope so.
Thanks again for coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great. That's all the time we have for this week. Again, thank you for our listeners for tuning in and our colleagues for their work on this week's episode. You can follow MEI on X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and subscribe to our email newsletters for the latest analysis and information about upcoming events. I'm Brian Katulis. We'll see you all soon.